Golf club review, wedges, and as a bonus, we're going to talk about two different kinds of golf balls. Can it make a difference for your distance and or your spin? Let's check this out. Welcome back to the McGolf Shop. Jim McCleary here, and this is the McGolf channel where we talk about golf club repairs, golf club reviews, and golf club fittings, all so your scores can go low. If you would, like, subscribe, hit that stuff across the bottom. That way this information gets out to the YouTube universe and anybody else who may want to know about this kind of topic. We also have a live stream. It's called What's in My Drawers Golf Talk. Talks about the same stuff, Mondays, 5:30 Eastern or 17:30 for those of you across the pond. And it's a live one-on-one, goes about an hour, hour and a half long. Join us, you'll like it. It's on Mondays at that 5:30 time frame. All right, so we are entering what I like to call golf clubs silly season, where we're getting notifications about what's going to be coming out for the next year. Now, the reason why you haven't been hearing a whole bunch about that is it's on embargo. Embargo means that we can't show it to you. And we can't talk about specifics either, but we can talk about what we liked about it, if it looked cool, very general topics. And literally that's a positive for the OEM because it keeps the interest for the product going. That's the hard and soft of it all right there. Now, Mizuno has introduced some new wedges already, all right? The hot metal was for this year, well, it was introduced this year, and their rotation is every other year. You have hot metals product one year, and you have Mizuno Pro product the next year. And the Mizuno Pro product is the blade, the player's cavity back, and the hollow body, and the wedge. Okay, this year, or coming up into the year, which is already released, it's kind of an early deal, is a T24 wedge. All right, the T24 wedge has been upgraded from the T22 wedge, however so slight. Okay, however so slight. Now, if I was to show you, so let's talk about the standards of Mizuno. All three of the wedges come in three different kinds of coatings. One is what they call a white satin. The white satin has the copper underlay on it to make it feel a little softer. Traditional Mizuno wedge building. Okay. The second is the denim copper, and the denim copper is the copper's on the outside, all right? And again, it's still grain flow forged, but the copper's on the outside. It has a very, very cool look to it, and I'll show you here in a minute. And then the final one is the raw, and the raw doesn't have any of that stuff either because, well, it's raw, right? There it is, right there. All right, and they're all good looking. So what did they do different this year than the previous years, or even last year for that matter? All right, that's the question. Did it make it better? Well, that remains to be seen. But what I can tell you what they did is they tried to increase the look of the club and creating what they called a better teardrop shape. And what I mean by that is they concentrated a little bit more relief in here, and then they took some of that weight out of here so that you could have it gives it that look of essentially the same hitting area, however, it might be just a hair smaller. Now, when they do with that weight, that weight that they use, they can use to maneuver to lower areas. Now, the other part that they've done is the grooving, all right? The grooving. So what they've done is they've always been loft specific on grooves. And what does that mean? That means as the stronger lofts, 48, 49, 50, 50, and that kind of stuff, 51, that there are smaller grooves closer together. And then as they get weaker in loft, i.e. 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, that the grooves get wider and further apart. And the whole idea is the control of spin. Because let's face it, when you're hitting something at 48, i.e. old pitching wedges, you don't need a truckload of spin, right? Because it's a full swing club. When you get into the 56s, it's not a full swing club, so you need different grooves to give you maximize the spin. Now what they call it is there's a quad cut, all right, and it's a quad cut. And what they did is they removed a little bit on the shoulder, and then they V'd the groove a little bit more. So what happens is that when they're closer, they're deeper, and when they're wider, they're shallower, because there's a space, that allotment that they're allowed to have. That's in the rules. Okay. So there's also another a grooving with between the grooves, and that's the hydro flow, and that's to take water away, blah blah blah. Okay. The other thing that they did is they narrowed the top line a little bit, so that if you're leaving the Mizuno Pro line and you have your forged club, that you'll have these forged wedges and you'll have that forged feel. And they wanted to do that. Now, I get this question quite a bit, in that are all wedges forged? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, to my mind, there's only two. There's only two companies out there that have forged wedges. The rest of them are what I would call soft cast, meaning that they're using softer metals and they're casting these wedges, okay? And typically the ones that are soft cast are the ones that are the most popular. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, so we've talked about that one. Now they've changed their grind compilation. All right, there's 5 grinds that they have now. All right, so there's 5 different kinds of grinds. There's an S grind, a C grind, a D grind, an X grind, and a V grind. That's the new one added today. So S grind is exactly what it sounds like. It is a standard sole, the trailing edge is straight and beveled. There's no heel and toe relief. The next one, C and D, what you would think of as a high and low bounce option that has a medium heel and toe relief, where the X and the V are the high and the low, and they have a massive amount of heel and toe relief. So it depends, right? If you're a low bounce person, typically it means you're coming in a little steeper and you need that higher bounce to help you bounce out. Now, if you're more creative, or you're in these areas that have lots of moguls or lots of up and downs, and you find yourself in some really tricky situations, then the X and the V's would be the way to go, because then it's a more maneuverable wedge. All right. If you find yourself in what I would call medium conditions, where fairly flat, you got rough, and the greens are above the fairways just a little bit, and you're doing a lot of chipping with it, that kind of stuff, then the C's and the D's, depending on how you attack the ball. That's where a lot of that would go. All right, so we've talked a lot about that. This is a D, and if you can see, there's a lot running around here, and then there's the flat right there. In comparison to a C, which I still have the plastic on, and the reason why I have the plastic on is because this thing will start patinaing as soon as I take it off. But you notice there's not a lot of removal there. Okay, so that's all fun and dandy. The real question is, how does it work, right? How does it work? So I have demos that I switch shafts with, and I made a left-handed one. And in this particular instance, I decided to try the Project X wedge shaft in 6.0. Let's go see how that worked. I got to interrupt one more time. The other part that I was talking about earlier on was golf balls. So I'm using Mizuno golf balls in this one, the RB Tour and the RB Tour Max. The Max is the new golf ball. Now, if you've been out there, the RB Tour is getting a little bit of praise out there for being a decent golf ball. From what I've hit so far, it is a massive improvement from the previous model. The first model was not very good. This model is actually pretty decent. Now they've come up with a Max. Now the Max is made for slower swing speeds. It's kind of their version of the soft ball. So I decided to hit 5 apiece, and we're going to see. So let's go hit. Alrighty, so what we did is I just made this a really quick short test. I didn't want to hit a whole bunch of clubs or a whole bunch of wedges in order to do this. This was a real quick snapshot in time about how these would work. And this is the T24 white satin using a Project X 6.0 wedge shaft, and then half of these shots are with the RB Tour from Mizuno, and the other half are the RB Tour Max. Okay, so let's go see what we did. All right, so here's the shots. Now we're going to whittle them down to 5. This is 7 shots that I took, and this is what it looks like. Mostly down the street, mostly down the middle, a little bit to the right. Now keep in mind I'm a lefty, so I'm pulling to the inside with that one. Alrighty. Now with the max, we send that on its way. And again, a little bit tighter maybe up into the forward, right? And just one off to the side. All right, so if we wanted to see the grouping, which is where we're going to talk about how we're going to get rid of it. So this is the RB Tour Max. Obviously, we're going to get rid of these two right there. So we got to find them. There's one, and there's two. So there's the RB Tour Max. Good looking pattern. All right, this is the RB Tour, and these are the two we're going to get rid of. There's one, and there's two. Okay, not as tight, but a little bit further. It looks like kind of a reverse arrow here. All right, so now what's it look like when we send it? Let's see. This is the RB Tour. Still pulling to the inside. All right. And then the RB Tour Max. And very, very tight. All right. So there we go. So now let's go look at overall numbers and see what we see. All right, so the RB Tour is literally 10 yards longer in carry and another 11 yards longer in total distance. It looks to be a little bit tighter in lateral, as we knew that was going to happen. My club head speed was less than a mile an hour different. The quality of hit was a 0.06 difference. That can be pretty substantial at the time frame. However, I'm only 11 RPM different, so that's not too bad. The vertical, I actually hit the max a little bit higher by 1.5 feet, and the vertical sent was a little bit steeper, meaning that's going to stick a little bit better. And as because of that higher vertical launch and that steeper coming into it, it only rolled just shy of 2 yards instead of the 2.5 I got for the other one. I had a little bit higher angle of attack with the max than I did with the other one, which could lead to the flight of the ball. But everything else is actually pretty decent, right? We like that one. So did we have any real outliers with all this? Well, the RB Tour Max was extraordinarily constant, right? It is all in those same areas, and it did very, very well. The RB Tour, on the other hand, was very, very constant until my very last one. Apparently, I just nuked one. And if you look, the swing speed was actually lower, but it was hit way, way better, and I got more. So is there a hot spot? Maybe. Now, with the spin rates, if you look, that's a false spin rate right there, but that one is a real one. So if we look at this, the regular ones, they're running around between 76 and 83, 84, where this other one is running around, and there's another one, a couple low ones, 73, 74, there's an A3. So the RB Tour Max, you could say, actually did spin a little bit less as a whole with the rest of them. So what we have here is a tale of two golf balls. One is, it flew a little shorter, but it went very, very consistently. Or you can have this one where it flew very much further, but it wasn't nearly as tight. And so there's the difference. That would be the difference in the golf ball for you. All right. Now the other one is, if we wanted to look, golf ball trajectory, anywhere from 18 to 20 yards, and anywhere from 18 a little bit higher. So just a little bit higher. Okay. So anyway, what we have here, tale of two golf balls. One a little shorter but tighter, a little bit further, but not nearly as precise. So take it as it is, see what you can do, and let's go back and talk about it. Well, it wasn't a bad test, right? It was just a really short one to kind of get a good feel of how a club would work and how the golf balls would work, because unless you hit them, you don't know, right? And so what did we find out? Number one is that the wedge felt really, really good, all right? Now, when we talk about wedges, lie angle is paramount, grind angles are paramount, getting the right weight is paramount. All these things come into mind so that you have really good turf interaction. That's the key, turf interaction. You don't want to get stuck, right? Now, it also incorporates where you play and how you play, as the types of these grinds would work for you. Right? Keep in mind, C, D, V, X, and then S. All right, the S is basically standard with the grind that goes all the way from heel to toe. C's and D's are the ones that have a little bit removed, but one has a higher bounce, one has a lower bounce, and that's for the type of play. Then you have the X and the V, and the same thing, only with an extreme amount removed, and that again, where you play, how you play, will discern how you do that. Keep in mind that not every one of these grinds is equal in the number of lofts that it has. So it is very, very, very common that you'll have, let's just say, a 1 in the C or D grind in one and the X or V grind in the other. And that's just how it would work out. All right, so we got that. The copper underlayment in the white satin, I think works really, really well. I think there's a massive cool factor in the denim copper. Right, it just looks really cool, and it will patina and get darker, so that has a plus factor to it as well. And the raw is what everybody understands is the raw. It's going to patina, there's say rust, and it can do that. If you like that sort of thing, there you are. The coating on it is nowhere near as brilliant as the other two. It is very, very low-key silver-looking color. And the look at a dress is exactly like Mizuno would talk about. You know, the top line is very narrow. They have the wraparound cut on the back end on the heel, and that little area that's in between the hosel and the face of the club gives this a certain shape that people can gravitate to. All right, so there's that one. Number 2 is the golf ball. The golf ball comes in, you have the Tour and you have the Max. Now, is it to say one's better than the other? Absolutely not. What we're talking about here is the Tour is for certain swing speeds, certain angle of attacks, in order to give you certain spin rates and certain performances. The Max is for slower swing speeds, so it gets the ball up in the air and helps carry and give a different kind of flight. So if you're a person that has a slower swing speed, say a driver swing speed of, let's just say 75 and below, this is a ball that would very, very well may work in your bag. And that's what it's talking about. Now, this was a contest of 2 balls. The Max was a very, 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 very tight golf ball. It was just short. Now, if you're looking for consistency, that very well may be it, because you can gauge what you need, throwing it down in there. And the funny part, they're both longer than I would normally hit mine. At least that's what I'm thinking. And the only reason why the other one was super longer is because that last hit on the Tour ball, I just found the exact middle of that wedge, and it took off like a shot. But it spun very, very well. It gave me a little more spin, not by a lot, but it did very well. So there's kind of a comparison. I do like the RB Tours and the RB Tour X. It's a much improved version than last year or the previous model. The previous model was crud. This one is a very nice ball, something to look into. The Max is for your slower swing speeds. So hopefully that helps you out and gets you along with, if you're looking for a new wedge, a new forged wedge, this is where you can go and actually take a look for them. All right, if you got any questions, put them in the show notes below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Join us on the live stream. And as always, let's see your scores. Go low.